Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Farmer Dan here. So I'm going to start. I'm going to try to do this weekly. May not be real consistent on time and day and everything, but I'm going to go over the Sunday sermons and notes, so I don't take credit for any of this. I do have some of my own thoughts, but the basic material comes from the sermon on Sunday. And I'm going to do this to just really try to hopefully encourage others, but also just trying to learn to be just a better communicator. And so we're just going to try this and see how it goes. So Sunday we actually had a guest speaker, Pastor Scotty Gibbons. He was in town for a marriage conference that our church was putting on. Fortunately, we're not able to attend. Just couldn't find childcare, but was at least able to get the chance to hear him speak on Sunday morning. So his passion, or his passage that he was reading out of, a number of different passages. His topic was relationships, and the first passage that he had was 1 Corinthians 12:12, and that says, "For just as the body is one and has many members, and all the members of the body, though many, are one body, so it is with Christ." So I just want to just expound on that. We all have our own part and unique gifts and abilities. He had made the statement, God likes you, but God didn't make everyone like you. And not like you in the sense of, like or dislike you, but he made each of us unique with different skills and abilities and talents. And we all have our own unique skills that we bring together that makes the body complete, right? And that kind of brings us into the second passage, which is 1 Corinthians 12:20 through 21. "As it is, there are many parts, yet one body. The eye cannot say to the hand, I have no need of you, nor again the head to the feet, I have no need of you." Right? I think it's important to understand that we all have our own roles, and there's not one that's more important than any of the others. They can seem maybe less significant, but they all have their purpose, and we all need each other, and we can't function really as the body of Christ without each of us and our own unique gifts and abilities. And I think it's easy to focus on maybe others' gifts and wish that you were like somebody else, or you wish you had their giftings and talents. And I just think that's a really dangerous place to go. And we all need to understand that God made us all unique and individuals. There's not any of us that are alike. We all look different. We all think differently. We all have different talents. We're created in the image of God, and He didn't give us each of us all His aspects, but He did give us each of us some of the aspects of Him and His creativity, and it's important to discover what that is if you don't know what that is, and live in that gifting and that calling that God has made you unique for, and a part of the body and the function as a whole. We all need each other, and we can't operate individually. The feet move, but that doesn't do any good if you don't have hands to actually do anything, or it all works together, and it all plays together as an important role. And then the next passage is 1 Corinthians 12:27, which reads, "Now you are the body of Christ and individually members of it." And so that just kind of, just is reiterating, what we were just talking about. And, we're just each individually unique. And God doesn't make mistakes. So you are created exactly how He designed it and created you. And you just need to really accept that and be content with how God made you and the skills that He gave you, and don't think anything less than that it's any less important than somebody else's gifting. And then we come to Ephesians 4:16, which reads, "From whom the whole body joined and held together by every joint with which it is equipped, when each part is working properly, makes the body grow so that it can build itself up in love." And again, it's that's all about just functioning together as a body and as a whole, just working together. It's important to make sure that you're functioning in your role, right? Like if you're not functioning in the role that God has for you, then the whole body isn't functioning right. So I think it's, again, just focusing on your role and skills and abilities, and just focusing on that so the whole body can operate how God intended for it to operate. And then it comes to his first point is love one another, and he's got a couple of scriptures. The first one is John 15:12. "This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you." And then John 13:35. "By this all people will know that you are my disciples, if you have love one for another." And I think that's so important, especially in today's society, that people just see the love of Jesus in us and towards each other. And I hear of so many really silly, ridiculous church splits over just insignificant things, and it's just a poor testimony. It really is. And we just need to all just be loving each other and accepting each other for who they are and where they're at, and not be so easily hurt or offendable, and just so the world would see the love of Jesus in us. And then point number 2 is encourage one another. So let's see here. He's got Hebrews 10:24 through 25. "And let us consider how to stir up one another to love and good works, not neglecting to meet together as the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near." So I had some things that kind of stood out to me here. I think, again, going back to what we were saying earlier, about being, jealous of somebody else's, talents and abilities. I think it's in order for us to encourage each other, like, we need to be secure in the purpose and talents that God has for us, so that we can encourage others. If we're feeling insecure or feeling like our skills or talents don't have a whole lot of meaning, and we look at somebody else and think, man, I wish I had that talent. It'd be hard to encourage them, right? So it all comes down to our own really self-esteem, and how we see ourselves. Pastor Todd talks a lot about, if when you're secure, it's not who you are, but whose you are. And when you understand that you are a child of God, and He created you in His image, and He created you exactly how He intended to create you and give you the skills and abilities that you have, then we can be free, right, to to encourage others in their gifting, and not feel inferior, or like, we're just, we don't measure up. Um, so some things that stood out with what he said: you stand out if you build up and speak life and not tearing down. Right, it's another thing, it's another way of showing love to each other, right? To just build each other up and encourage each other and speak life into each other, and not tear each other down, but just have that positive, just speaking life over situations and over people. And some challenging questions were, how can God use me to speak life into somebody else? And that's, something that, I need to be more in tune with, especially with my family, my young kids, just being able to speak life into them and encourage them and who God made them, and just, just speaking life over them and their future. Right, and it's not just our families. I think it needs to start with our families, but then, as you get comfortable doing that, then you can then, go out and share that with others, and maybe it's in your small group or your church or your work settings or whatever. And one other thing that, is, I see, he made the statement, isolation is a tool of the devil, and I see this a lot. I have many friends that have been burned by the church over the years, and it's kept them from going back to church. Not that they're not saved, but it keeps them out of church and that fellowship that I really believe we're called to and we need. We were created to have that closeness and that intimacy with other believers, to encourage each other and speak life into each other. I thought he had this example of a bonfire, coals, right? Like when you have a fire and you pile all the coals together, right? Those coals just burn hotter and hotter. But if you isolate those coals and separate them, they just burn out so much quicker, and I just thought that was just a really good analogy of how we need each other, and we need that fellowship and that communion, and we're better together. We burn hotter together, but the tool of the devil of isolating somebody is so dangerous, and it leaves you so vulnerable, really, to attacks and lies and just just areas of your life. I mean, if you don't have people speaking not only life into you, but that are there to point out your your blind spots. We all have them. None of us like it when somebody points something out in our life that needs some attention, right? It's hard, but it's good. That's how we grow, and that's how we become more like Christ, is weeding out the garbage and the bad things, and we need people in our lives to be able to do that. And if we don't, then we're really in a very dangerous place, and I feel for these people that have isolated themselves, and I'm not negating the hurt, but I think it's also important to recognize, that we're all human, and if we're putting our faith in people, they're going to let us down, because we're all human and we make mistakes and we screw up. But our hope and our trust and our faith needs to be in Jesus and not people. So I thought that illustration was really good. And the other thing that really stood out to me was, it's easy to keep quiet, at least is for me, in small groups and settings. I'm not one that likes to speak out, so to speak. Like it takes me a long time to kind of formulate thoughts, and by the time maybe I get around to compiling what I have to say, everybody's kind of moved on to a different topic. Um, but the thing that stood out to me is when we think about needing each other, is if we looked at small groups or church even, or just any interaction really with people, um, as an opportunity to serve them and speak life into them that they may not otherwise get if we don't speak up and say anything. So, that kind of resonated with me too as well. Like it's, you're kind of doing them a disservice, right? If you don't speak up and you don't have any idea what that might do to somebody else. So, let that be an encouragement to you. Don't think anything is insignificant or small. Understand that, it might impact somebody. Maybe you say something, maybe they won't. It might be a thought that they just take back and think about and go over in their mind, and that helps them and encourages them. But if we focused more on what we can bring rather than what we can get, right, out of any relationship. I mean, that is so imperative, right? It's about serving and caring about other people, not about ourselves. And that's true of just a one-on-one conversation, small group, church, whatever. I think that's so important. So, and then his third point was serving one another. And he has a passage, 1 Peter 4:10, and I didn't write that one down, so I don't have that one in front of me, but I put a note in here that I thought was good with regards to serving each other. Before God does something supernatural, he asks us to do something super practical. So oftentimes, we're waiting for these big grandiose things for God to do, right? And sometimes, it's just what he's trying to teach us in the process, and who he wants us to become. We were talking last week at the small group that I've been attending, where God always answers your prayer. It might be yes, no, or wait, right, or not now. And that not now can be hard, but I also think it can be probably one of the most significant and life-changing experiences, because we're waiting on God, we're being patient, but also it's what if the waiting is God is waiting for us to become the person that he has called us and wants us to become. So I think it's important in those situations to ask God, what are you trying to teach me? Show me, what do I need to learn through this? Because, God is more interested in the process than he is the end result. It's all about just becoming and becoming who God created you to be. And what if that breakthrough that you're praying for is, just on the other side of your practical thing that God's asking you to do, or just whatever maybe he's asking you to yield or surrender something to him. What if that breakthrough that you're praying for and longing for is just on the other side of that, and the waiting is more about you. He's waiting for you to do what you've asked him, what he's asked of you, before you see the result that you're praying for. And that doesn't mean you're going to get the result right that you're hoping for. But again, it's all about becoming the person that God created you to be. So I hope this encourages you and blesses you. I'd love some feedback. This is, stretching for me, but I this is a part of me becoming the person that I believe God is calling me into. And so this is, just kind of something that I feel led to do on a weekly basis. So I hope to hear from you. I hope this blesses you, and I would love some feedback. If you have any comments, you need areas of prayer, have questions, whatever it might be, I'd love to connect. So feel free to leave me a comment. So love you all, and Farmer Dan signing off.